Hello everyone, Ryan here. Too Much and Never Enough by Trump, PH.D. Recently read this, and, well, I guess first I should mention that, before I get too deep into this review, I should mention that I don't ascribe to any political party. In other words, I personally believe that politics suck. And, to put it mildly, that's the gist of it. But pretty much that, for me, it's just, it's, I don't see. Granted, yeah, in the past, politics has helped out a lot of people. But for the most part, it's just for me, like, I don't like how, it divides people and, just in this country alone and in the States, in the United States, it's just, I don't like that it divides people way too much, and people get all caught up in their own personal beliefs, opinions, and all that, and which, yeah, sure, they're entitled to. Everyone and anyone is entitled to believe whatever they want to believe, or or not believe, and so forth and onward. But again, it's just for me. I don't like that politics is. It's always been one of those things that divides people more than it unites people. So, yeah. And I don't care, if whoever's listening to this, and yeah, you might think I'm a nutbag and this and that, or you know what? I'm already way beyond all the name calling. I don't respond to negative comments. I don't respond to anything negative. So, yeah, which is another thing too. Any and all negative comments I receive on this, I guarantee I will not respond to. I will delete. I will report as spam and all of that. And because I know there's going to be a lot of Trump supporters or Republicans or probably even other people too, others who may identify as a Democrat or a liberal, and who will no doubt not like my review of this, or like, I don't know, or may probably just won't like the fact that I don't ascribe to any political party anyways. So but honestly, it'll be nothing new to me. You can insult me all you want. Again, I'm beyond that. I've heard it all, seen it all, read it all. So yeah, I'm not going to respond to anything negative. So with that said and out of the way, I will say that this book is definitely well written, and I don't know. As like, I kind of knew what to expect going into it. And of course, Trump, she pretty much, for those of you who didn't know, she is the daughter of Fred Trump Jr. So yeah, which makes her Donald's niece. And so pretty much the entire book, is in fact, I would say like pretty much like 80-90% of the book is from her perspective, and a lot of things that she remembers experiencing as a kid growing up in the Trump family, and also other stuff that she heard from stories that she had heard from other family members. And So I mean, it's, of course, I'm not gonna just flat out say that everything she mentions can be considered factual. But I will say that it is all from her perspective, things she remembers, and plus not only that, it doesn't most of the things, most of I guess memories that she writes about. I mean, they all seem very plausible. I mean, none of it seems like far-fetched or way out there, Like, she doesn't talk about, that the Trump family visited the moon or Mars or whatever or anything like that. Or it starts off where, of course, she talks about Donald Trump's parents. Of course, Fred Sr. most notably. Fred Sr., when he was a teenager, he got involved with building garages for people. And his mother, I guess every now and then she would put aside a percentage of whatever he earned building garages. And she eventually, opened like a business account for him, and she thought of the Trump business name, or at least the initial name that the company started out as. And so when Fred Sr. was old enough, then he basically inherited the business name and then also the business account, and then of course kind of took it from there. I mean, obviously a lot of people know he pretty much made the majority of his money on real estate, investing in the building of real estate, and although of course he started out building a lot of apartments, mostly for, I guess at the time it would have been considered, I mean, because this would have been in the 50s. At the time it would have been considered, I guess, middle class, but today it would be more lower class, and but eventually it just kind of became more like he just got into okay, sorry about that, got kind of cut off, but so essentially what I was getting at, pretty much Fred Sr., he invested in real estate. And of course, he cut corners whenever he could in order to pocket more of the money that he actually got. I would say, I mean, he got a lot of, especially when he was starting out, he got a lot of help from government because he applied for different government loans, and of course most of these were loans that the government was at the time were willing to give to business owners in order to boost the economy. So, and again, this was back in the 50s, like early mid 50s, and so yeah, that's really all you need to know. I mean, as far as Fred Trump Sr. is concerned, I mean, when it comes to his business, and then of course Mary Trump, she then writes about the fact that Fred Sr., his main concern was his business. He wasn't really the fatherly type, or actually he was never really around a whole lot for his kids. He left that to his wife, or even that, Fred Sr. would deal with his sons and his wife, and which, if I'm not mistaken, I believe her name was Elizabeth. Yeah. But anyways, I mean, she was expected to deal with their daughters. So, and then not to mention that both of them, Fred Sr. and his wife, I mean, both of them, they were, I guess, they also had troubled childhoods themselves. I don't want to get too much into that. I mean, like, and the book, kind of briefly touches on that. So yeah, because of that, it definitely, I mean, you tend to hear about how kids, they need a stable home life, stable home environment. They need parental figures of some kind to look up to. They need that stable father figure, stable mother figure, or at least like some kind of parental figure, constant parental figure in their lives, especially when they're growing up, when they're still developing and all that. And so obviously that, the fact that Fred Sr. wasn't around a whole lot for his kids, yeah, that had an impact on them. Of course, I'm no psychologist myself, but I will agree with that. I will agree with that, definitely, that kids, they need a stable home life, stable parental figures around on at least a regular basis. So there was that, which I guess you could say kind of like laid the foundation for the upbringing of the Trump children. And then, unfortunately, as they got older, it just, it was kind of like, I mean, the way Mary Trump describes it is pretty much just like they became even more estranged from their own parents. And because as time went on, then, Fred Sr. got more and more involved in his business and less involved with his children. Until eventually when, of course, Donald started acting out in school and teasing his siblings, teasing other kids at school. And for whatever reason, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess Fred Sr., he thought that he assumed Fred Jr. was going to be just like him. But I guess it ended up being Donald ended up being the one that displayed characteristics more akin to Fred Sr. By which I mean, Fred Sr., yeah, he saw that Donald, I mean, granted, he didn't like that Donald was acting up in school and all that. But at the same time, it was kind of like he was somehow proud of Donald. Proud that, I guess, Donald wasn't taking crap from anybody, or I guess that's pretty much, I mean, that's the only way how I was able to understand it. And so yeah, because of that, Fred Sr. he ended up encouraging Donald to continue to just stick up for himself no matter what, and not take crap from anybody, or though, I mean, I'm not saying he used those words exactly, but he might as well have. That's the gist of it. And so yeah, that that fed into Donald's behavior. His behavior got worse, and to the point where eventually Fred Sr. Sent him off to some kind of military school. And of course, this is when, by the time Donald was a teenager. And yeah, I mean, so, rather than deal with his son himself, he just he decided to send him away with the hopes that somebody else could discipline him, or I don't know. Probably it could have been either, it could have been both. Like he wanted someone else to discipline Donald for him, but also that he just wanted Donald to go far away, like because Fred Sr. wanted, he didn't want to waste time away from his business. So, yeah. And eventually, and of course, Mary Trump, she writes about other members of the family. Of course, most notably, obviously Donald, but also her own father, Fred Jr. Fred Jr., he was pretty much, I want to say, if not the only one, but definitely, the way Mary Trump describes it, he was at least the first to try to break away from the family. And he, at a young age, he developed an interest in flying and being a pilot, and he eventually became a commercial airline pilot. And then, unfortunately, something happened where the airline got downsized or something like that. So, but then he started up his own company, like charter company, and eventually moved somewhere more upstate, and got his own plane, got his own boat, but at the same time too, Fred Jr., he had a hard time, because he wanted his father to be proud of him, but his father wasn't, because Fred Sr. wanted Fred Jr. Okay, so sorry, I got interrupted again. I keep getting interrupted. So yeah, Fred Jr. wanted his father's approval. He never got it because Fred Sr. didn't like the fact that Fred Jr. was, straying away from the family, more so the family business. And then, of course, eventually, Fred Jr. developed a drinking problem. Definitely, I would say most definitely because, it was, it helped him cope with family things, stress and all that. And, but at the very least, it definitely seemed like it was one of his triggers, the thing that triggered him to drink, turn to the bottle. And then, of course, that coupled with the fact that every so often his brothers, Donald and Robert, I believe, every now and then they would visit Fred Jr. Upstate, and of course Donald would be the one that he would criticize Fred Jr. He would constantly tell him stuff like, what the hell are you doing here, Fred? Dad doesn't approve of this, blah blah blah, so on and so forth, stuff like that. And, so which I can imagine. Granted, it's obviously there would have to be other factors taken into consideration, but definitely, when you're considered to be the black sheep of the family or the pariah of the family, and then you end up, being criticized by your own brothers, whether it's just one brother or all brothers or all siblings or whatnot. And, how can it not stress you out to the point where you end up turning towards something, something to alleviate the pressure, the stress, the anxiety, all that. So yeah, unfortunately, it became a big problem for Fred Jr. To the point where he eventually had a heart attack from it because of all his drinking. And one thing I thought was interesting, not interesting, but I wasn't really expecting when Mary Trump, she described the moment when she learned about her father, because when Fred Jr., he was hospitalized, I want to say, because this was before he had a heart attack, but essentially, like, when she found out, it was like her grandparents, of course, Fred Sr., well, most notably Fred Sr., like, even then, when his own son was in the hospital, like, he had this whole, like, nonchalant attitude about it, and, like, he even told her over the phone, not to worry, like, don't worry, get some sleep, everything will be okay. But it was during the same time, within the span of the same evening, when Fred Jr. had a heart attack and he died, and so, I mean, yeah, it definitely made Fred Sr. come off as, I mean, yeah, the whole book makes Fred Sr. come off as cold-hearted, and but I mean, it's, I mean, well, I guess I would say I kind of expected that, like, is, but, it's, I guess mostly, like, it kind of, it, like, somewhat shocked me, mostly because, like, I've never, like, me personally, I've never really had to deal with that, like, I mean, yeah, I've had family members pass away and all that, but never really had, like, any family member, like, just be so nonchalant about another close family member passing away, like, so, I don't know, I guess that's really why it shocked me, and because of that, I would say, yeah, I mean, Mary Trump, she definitely has, I mean, well, come on, I mean, she's got the right to write about whatever she wants, I mean, just like anybody else, and just because she happens to be writing about one of the most well-known families in this time period, doesn't really mean that everything she writes about is completely false. So, I mean, I don't know. That's how I feel about it. And of course, like, eventually, towards the latter half, like, she gets more and more into everything to do with, well, not everything, but a lot of stuff to do with Donald, and another thing I found interesting was, like, she wrote about how when she was a kid, and they would always get together for Thanksgiving and then also Christmas, and she wrote about a couple of times when Donald showed up with his then wife Ivanka, and they showed up, and they gave gifts to everyone, all the family members, but they showed up in, like, they would always show up in, like, a brand new expensive car, wearing brand new expensive clothes, and the gifts that they would give to everyone ended up being, like, re-gifted stuff, like gift baskets and gift certificates and stuff like that they would get at, like, different parties that they went to or functions or whatnot. And like, one time Mary Trump mentioned how when she was little, and she got this thing, like, from Donald and from Ivanka. It was like a big plastic shoe, like a plastic women's high heel shoe, but it was, like, I guess, spray painted gold or something like that, or it had some kind of gold coloring on it, and it was stuffed with, like, some weird, like, hard candy, and that was a gift that she got from them. And even when she opened it, and then Donald saw after she opened it, and he tried to make a big deal, he tried to make it seem like a really cool gift or something, and And he pointed at it, he said, wow, who gave you that? And then she looked at him and she said, well, you did. And then like he picked it up and he like turned it around, like tried to show it off. And then like he even turns to Ivanka and he like kind of shouted to her, like he said, wow, hey Ivanka, this is a really great gift. And of course Mary at the time, even though she was a little girl, like it still seemed weird to her. And then I guess the year after that, they gave her some kind of gift basket, and it even had stuff missing from it. There was like, because it was stuffed with tissue paper, and then she could see, of course, on the bottom of the tissue paper there was indentations of missing jars and other containers, and so yeah, I mean, according to her, that's the kind of stuff that not only that she would get from them for Christmas, but all the family members. So I mean, obviously, Donald took after his father in more ways than one. I mean, even though I don't know. I mean, really, like that kind of stuff. I wasn't surprised reading about, because I mean, I've read like tons of other stuff about how the rich tend to be frugal with their money, cheapskates and whatnot, and so it really didn't surprise me. And then, of course, there were also mentions of fighting over family inheritance and all that, and of course, once Fritz Sr. had passed, and that was also expected. I mean, for me, I also expected that, rich people fighting over inheritance, and I mean, whether or not they are entitled to it, or it was just, I don't know, I expected it. And then of course also too, at one point Mary, she was asked by Donald to write one of his books, and of course Donald, he's written I don't know how many books. Well, actually, I mean, no, he didn't write them. He hired ghostwriters to write them. He hired other people to write them for him, which I already knew that. I mean, it was like, because I mean, at one point, like even like way before, the presidency and all that, like at one point I tried to read one of his books, and for me, it definitely didn't seem like something he would write. So yeah, I wasn't surprised about that. Learning that he hired ghostwriters. I mean, and then yeah, also to be fair, a lot of people hire ghostwriters. So, but I mean, it's just like there's some that are more obvious than others. So yeah, Mary got hired to be one of the ghostwriters for, I don't even remember which one of his books, but one of them, I don't know, the third or fourth one. And she, of course, she ended up being fired by the publisher because, she wasn't able to get a straight answer from Donald, because she spent like, I don't know how long, a couple months at the most, trying to sit down and interview Donald and get a straight answer from him about what his job is. And of course he never gave her a straight answer. And even when she would sit like right at his desk, like in front of him, and he would just, all he would really, I mean, according to her, all he would really do is like make a bunch of phone calls and just have a bunch of long drawn out conversations about different parties he went to the night before. And so yeah, I mean, that's again another thing that I expected. And so yeah, eventually she was fired by the publisher because they didn't like that, it was taking her so long, even though she tried to explain to them. But still, so they fired her and they hired some other ghostwriter, and which I don't know who. But yeah, that's Really, I would say, like, for me, it was nothing really too. For me, it was nothing really too revealing. And yeah, Mary Trump, like, she doesn't spend the entire book, like, just insulting Donald or insulting other members of the family. I mean, there are sections, there's bits and pieces here and there where she does kind of throw out a couple insults, but that's not the majority of the book. And as she definitely does offer some keen insight, psychological insight into not just Donald's personality, but personalities of the other family members too. And yeah, just I don't know what else I could possibly say about it. Especially without spoiling too much. But also too is I feel like you can't really spoil most of this because most of the stuff in this book you can look up. So I know I ended up Googling probably like. I ended up Googling like maybe I don't know how many things, like 5 or 6 things. Yeah, that's what all this book. That's what the entirety of this book is about, pretty much. And it's trying to think of it, what else I could possibly say about it. I guess it's just really it was just all what I expected. Nothing too revealing, too shocking, but then I guess if you've never really considered these kinds of things, especially when it comes to any wealthy family, then I guess I could see it coming off as revealing and very shocking, and but otherwise was exactly what I expected, and it's I believe I tried to remain as unbiased as possible, even though I'm not a fan of the current presidency, even though I'm not a fan of any political party really. I'm just going off based on what I read in this book. In short, it's well written. There's a lot of expected things. For me, there's a lot of stuff in it that I expected, and possibly a handful of things that I kind of didn't really expect. But once I thought about them for a while, I realized that it makes sense that kind of stuff would happen within a wealthy family. And so, yeah. I guess overall I would give it a rating of 4 stars, 4 out of 5 stars. So, yeah. I apologize if this review seems like just a little too rambly or whatever, that's... Yeah. It is what it is. So, this will definitely be one of my longest book reviews, but, hey, I didn't even really touch upon, like, there's still so much more I could have touched upon, but, if I did that, then this probably would have ended up being, like, an hour-long thing, and, I don't really want to ramble on for an hour. Like, I'm surprised that I rambled on this long, but... So yeah, that does it for my review of this book by Mary Trump. And hey, it's... I guess I would recommend anyone read it. I recommend everyone. I believe everyone should read it, pretty much. Just especially if you want to stay informed on, current events, or I don't know what I'm saying. I think I'm starting to get tired of talking, but yeah, I mean, why not? It's just, if you got nothing else to read this. And of course, I don't mean to downplay anything that Mary Trump wrote about, or any of her experiences, or that's just, again, like I said, I expected most of it, and I didn't find it really too revealing or too shocking. So yeah, that's it. Once again, I give it 4 out of 5 stars, and that'll do it. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. As always, next time, don't forget, keep it real, keep on rocking, and peace.